Howdy, everybody. Let's all gather to our seats and we will begin. So glad that you all could join us today for our special guest. Very thankful that you could be here with us. And we also want to welcome those that have been waiting online for us. We're glad that you're here. And so we're going to get ready in just a minute as people are gathering to their seats. If the person that's going to get ready to share with us today, if you're unfamiliar with, he'll give you a little intro on some of the stuff that he has written. But Patrick Wood has been an expert in many fields, including technocracy and transhumanism. But one of the things that I became familiar with Patrick Wood a very long time ago was his work he did with Anthony Sutton called Trilaterals over Washington. When I got interested in, I was always been interested in Bible prophecy, and I listened to people like Chuck Smith and other people start talking about, the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberger Group and, all of these different groups in the UN. And I really wanted to learn more about it. And so our church library had a book called Trilaterals over Washington. And so I had read it and kind of learned about that whole movement, and it kind of helped me to put pieces together. And years would go by, and a gal at our church told us Patrick Wood was on Tom Hughes. We saw him, and we thought, oh, this guy's pretty cool, And so this gal at our church goes, I go to church with him. You ought to meet him. And so we went to a pre-trib study group conference, and Patrick was there with his books. And I walked up to the table and looked down and saw that book that I had been reading when I was a young Christian and thought, wow, isn't that cool? I got to meet somebody that helped me grow in a lot of the stuff that you guys know that we talk about all the time here. It's important stuff. And I'm sure Patrick will share a little bit more about his story, how he's come here maybe, but he's just been through a pretty long journey, and God has spared him and brought him here so he could share with us. And so you want to come on up, Patrick, and I'll go ahead and pray for you, and then we'll get started. We'll try to do some Q&A afterwards, so we'll just see how long the message goes and how much time we got left, but I know you guys are not in a hurry to leave. So you want to come on over here, Patrick, and I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'll turn you on, and then we'll pray. There you go.
Testing? Oh,
You're
okay.
good. I got the board down there, too. I can turn it up. All right, well, let's go ahead and pray for the message. Father, we come before you, and we thank you so much again for we thank you for Patrick and Shar, and we thank you for the work you're doing in their life, Lord. We thank you for bringing them here safely, Lord. And we just pray, Lord, as you've laid important information on his heart that we need to know. So, God, please use him tonight to share with us and to equip us so that we can know what's going on in the world, and also look up and know that our redemption draws even nearer today than it was yesterday. And so that's the hope that we have, and we're very thankful for it. So we just give them to you. Please use them tonight as we thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. I can sit. I like that part. Yes, indeed. I'm tall enough that I can see over, and I can get the camera on me here. So here I am talking about my new book, New Economics of Technocracy. You'll Own Nothing, subtitle. Some of you have heard this phrase in the past by the World Economic Forum, for instance. Klaus Schwab said it several years ago. You will be happy, somehow. You got a little bit of echo still. So the subject of my talk tonight will be the New Economics of Technocracy. This is a book that I should have probably written the first thing out of my mouth, but that was 11 years ago when I wrote about Technocracy Rising. But this book is the first major treatise that I've done on the new economic system of technocracy, and I think you'll understand what I'm going to talk about here. I started in 1976 as a financial writer. Had first questions on about global power at that point, and I was fortunately teamed up with Professor Anthony Sutton, who was an esteemed scholar from Stanford University. He taught me everything he knew. Well, he taught me everything that I ever learned about economics, for sure. I studied in college, but that didn't do any good. So he refreshed me and mentored me, and gave me a love for the truth to understand what was going on in the world. So when I wrote Trilaterals over Washington with them in 1978, that was our first major treatise. Then in 2015, I started out writing about technocracy. I know some of you have already heard me talk about technocracy along the way. I have had two other books since then, Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, The Evil Twins of Technocracy and Transhumanism. And then last year, I released a book with a co-author called The Final Betrayal, How Technocracy Destroyed America. This is a heavy topic, you understand, right? I don't want to scare you, but I know as Christians, you want to know what's going on in the world, and you want to form a biblical worldview. This is what it's all about. So after 2025 and in November, when we released this book, I wrote this with Courtney Turner, and I thought, well, that'd be the end of it for me for a while. We wrote this book in real time since Trump took office in last January. And I've never written a book in real time, but I did with this gal, and we went back and forth on the video calls, and how are we going to talk about this, and that's something else that come up. Oh my gosh, we had this in the book, and so we chronicled everything that happened from January to November and the Trump administration, vis-a-vis technocracy in particular. That's my field of study. And it was stunning how fast technocracy was just taking root everywhere you looked, with all these tech bros in Washington, D.C., the Elon Musk of the world, the Peter Thiels of the world, the David Sacks of the world. All these people just descended into Washington, D.C. and basically took over our government. Incredible. So as I was rocking along, it occurred to me since November till, let's see, last month, when was it, Charmaine? The first, when did this book come out? March? End of March. Okay, so November, December, January, February, 5 months essentially. I was compelled to write this book just chronicling what happened since November 4th to that period of time. And my guess is by the end of this year, there will be another book that's going to be, that'll supersede this one, chronicling what happened in the interim period. So having said that, something's going on in the world today. The Great Reset is here. There's a tectonic shift in the building blocks of global order. We can see President Trump has been disrupting things all over the world vis-a-vis the global system. The price-based order is fracturing right now, and sovereign currencies, national borders, independent trade are giving away to a single integrated system. And a networked order is assembling right before our eyes: programmable money, tokenized assets, digital identity converge into one closed economic architecture. It's a stunning revelation, for instance. And so we talk about the debt-based economic system. If you don't know what exactly, I'm not going to explain it to you, but our economic system is based on debt. I know that sounds weird, but when money is lent to people and society that creates money. That's how our economic system works. And when debt is retired, then the money supply shrinks. We're giving way to an asset-based economic system at this point, based on asset tokenization. You'll get this, I think, when we as I go along. Though the disruptor at this point, Trump did not stop the reset. He didn't. He's been a disruptor for sure, but he has clearly accelerated the Great Reset at this point, clearing the old order to make way for the new. And this is what this is all about. Now, I have to give you some of the people, the players in the system, because now there's probably 3 or 4 screens I could give you, but this is an example. J.D. Vance is a protege of Peter Thiel, for instance. Elon Musk, you all know who he is. Peter Thiel is the kingmaker for sure. David Sachs is one of the members of the PayPal mafia going way back to the 2000s. Michael Kratsius is the director of the Office of Scientific Technology, whatever, in the Trump administration. Scott Bessent is a technocrat extraordinaire. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. Mark Andreessen, he's a guy that, all these people are billionaires, you know that, right? They're all billionaires. They're all technocrats, arch technocrats. So Mark Andreessen was one of the people that sat with Trump before the election to pick all these people who went into his administration in the first place. So he's a very important actor. Sam Altman, you all know who he is, the founder of, Project Stargate, but also OpenAI. Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle. Thomas Shedd, another guy that has been working for Tesla for years, and he came into the government to take over the policy on several agencies. And then we have an odd character by the name of Jared Kushner. Some of you heard about this guy. He's Trump's son-in-law, right? The big wig, right? Well, we're going to have to talk about him. He's a total arch technocrat as well. So going on, what is technocracy? This will be a review for you for sure. It's a utopian economic system that discards the price-based capitalism in favor of an energy or resource-based allocation mechanism administered by engineers, scientists, and technical experts. They replaced and wanted to replace all elected government people altogether. So the original form of technocracy in 1932 said there's no place for private property. We call this today sovereign property. There's a purpose for that, but we all know what private property is. You own a home, that's your private property. You own a car, that's your private property. So they said, well, the resources are all going to be centrally monitored and allocated by technical experts. You won't own anything. This was the first instance of you will own nothing. This was in 1932. So no price system. The concept back then was that they would issue energy certificates to the population. They would be non-transferable, expiring, and they'd all be tracked. And you'd get your energy allocation at the beginning of a period. It would expire at the end of that period. And again, there will be no government. They wanted to get rid of all politicians summarily. We see this pressure even today where our elected officials go to Washington, D.C. What happens to them? They fall into a black hole. All of a sudden, they're impotent to do any good thing for us. Well, this was not an accident. That was just not a force of nature. But this is the blueprint that was drawn in 1934, 90 years ago, almost to the year. Technology has finally caught up to the 1932 blueprint. And it's stunning to think that those early technocrats understood the trajectory of technology, especially computer technology, because these were the cream of the crop at Columbia University, and they went into their studies in the basement of Hamilton Hall, where the other side of the hall was rented or given to the early iteration of IBM that built the first Hollerith computer that was shipped into Nazi Germany, just incidentally. So they were rubbing shoulders with these brainiacs who understood, well, this is the future of the future. At this point, tech is going to be digital, and here's our first masterpiece that was all based on punch cards. You might remember that. Well, if you don't know what it is, you don't know, but punch cards reigned until maybe 1950s, 60s, and so on. But it's interesting to see that the founders of the movement, Technocracy Inc., they had certain requirements that they wanted to have met. One was total registration of all persons and property. They meant that. They thought, well, we'll do it with paper and pencil if need be. Continuous inventory of all production and consumption, individual tracking from birth to death, centralized distribution, no holdouts permitted, energy certificates instead of money. Well, we see the threads of all these things today, 90 years later, and we'll discuss this along the way, I think. So, in 2016, this is where the World Economic Forum issued this document called 8 Predictions for the World in 2030. That was 2016. We're almost to 2030 now. And they said, that I think was number 2 on the list, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. They backpedaled immediately because they got all kinds of flack for saying that in the first place, you might imagine. So, but nevertheless, it stood and test, and you can go get this document off the internet now, and you see exactly what they said. So it was never about, I've still got an echo. Can you unheat it a little bit? Okay, here we go. It was never about confiscation, however. It was about redefinition of the terms we used. We'll see this as we go by, as we continue here. The goal was to build a system which ownership in itself becomes structurally impossible. In other words, they didn't want to take all of your property away summarily with a gun, but they wanted to redefine what it meant to have property in the first place. And they've been very successful at doing this at this point. So when we talk about this 3-layer architecture, there's 3 levels of it. You'll understand, I think, exactly what are we talking about. 3 interlocking systems produce a closed economic system from which there is no exit. This is one of the features of the system. There's no way to get out of it. Programmable money, stable coins, central bank digital currencies, etc. Currency becomes an instrument of behavioral control. Every transaction is visible, traceable, subject to conditions set by the platform operator. We're going to talk about payment tokenization and asset tokenization on the other hand. Asset tokenization, this is apart from the concept of digital payments. Asset tokenizations concerns fractional ownership of an asset. Maybe it's a house, maybe it's property, maybe it's cars, whatever. Real property is converted to digital tokens. Fractional holders own nothing in any historically or legally meaningful sense. Access evaporates when the platform operator decides to do it. So this business of asset tokenization is sweeping the world right now. When I first I wrote my first paper on asset tokenization probably a year, maybe 2 years ago. I had no idea. It was just theoretical at that point. I tried convey to people what this is, what it's going to be, what it look like. Just 2 months ago, the New York Stock Exchange announced they're going to tokenize all of the assets of the all the stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. Boom. So what is this? Well, we're not going to go into it, but this is a huge announcement. So when somebody like Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, for instance, said anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized, that's exactly what he means. This is otherworldly for us who have been dealing with an economic system based on price discovery, supply and demand, that sort of thing. So the layer 3 of this architecture is digital identity. You've seen all this business of the identity systems, like in England, where they're talking about forcing the access to the internet based on your digital identity. Their smartphones are being used now to carry that wallet and that digital identity. So if you want to get access to the internet, well, you have to put in your password or your code, whatever, on your smartphone, then you could have access to it. So they know everything that you're going to do at that point. This is really crazy. But every participant is a known track permission entity. That's the whole point. Access to commerce and property is conditional on maintaining compliance. Have you ever read terms of service? You sign up for something on the internet and they say, well, check this box. You know, you agree that you've read all of the terms of service, and you go click and you get this document, scroll it, you know, it goes on forever. And who reads that garbage, right? Well, they expect you to read it because they'll hold you to it. And you might remember during COVID years where people were kicked off the internet, they're kicked out of services because you violated the community's terms of service. They never told you what that was, but nevertheless you violated it, and so you're out of there. So digital identity, asset tokenization, and programmable money make the 3-layer architecture. And this has all been put in place since Trump took office, and just from January of last year. So we talk about programmable money now, stable coins, central bank digital currencies, the death of cash. You know, cash has been under attack for a long time. How many facilities in your city right now have abandoned cash altogether? We're in a hotel in Salt Lake City. The big sign on the check-in desk, we do not accept cash at this facility. That seems to me to be illegal, but nevertheless, that's their policy. No cash, and you have a credit card, and that's all. So when Trump established his own World Liberty Financial stablecoin company in late or fall of 2024, nobody thought everybody looked at it like a joke almost. You know, well, maybe barren, experimenting with meme coins or something like that, you know, whatever. And everybody laughed it off. Well, it turns out that Trump saw the light somewhere along the way, and now their little bitty meme coin business has increased to over $13 billion. And how do you do this? Like normal people, could this happen to any one of us? I don't think. But they've grown this whole system, this ecosystem of, they call them stable coins. And unbelievably, I was shocked when they made an announcement, a press release last year. Well, we just signed up Pakistan. That's an Islamic country, by the way. Pakistan will use World Liberty Financial's stable coin. It's called USD1. It's positioned like an upgrade for the dollar. Pakistan is going to use this on an experimental basis to clear international transactions with other countries. That's just struck me as really odd. So all this the legislation, executive orders, the Genius Act that was passed last year, and on July 18th, Trump's World Liberty Financial was already in compliance for it. So they designed the company to be compliant with the legislation that didn't exist yet, but then they wrote the legislation to make sure that their company would be compliant. Does that make any sense? Well, okay. So programmable, the currency can restrict what you buy, where, when, and from whom. We've never seen this in the history of our country for sure. The currency ceases to be a medium of exchange and becomes behavioral control. If they want you to block you to do any transaction that they conceive of, your money can be shut off or modified to where you're blocked from doing that. So there was this is kind of a 1934 parallel for sure. The USD1 is kind of like the energy certificate made digital back in 1934. Programmable, traceable, subject to an expiration on conditions written into a smart contract. Layer 2, asset tokenization. They're positioning this as fractional ownership. But fractional ownership is not ownership in any way that we can understand it. They call it democratized investing. They talk about fractional ownership for everyone. Even if you're just a pauper, or you have a wallet, you got $10 in your pocket, well, you can own a slice of Trump Tower or something. They said, well, access to your assets that you can never afford in the first place. They talk about, well, it's revolutionary financial innovation, rah, rah, rah. Larry Fink said every asset will be tokenized if something can be tokenized. So basically, they're taking all of the assets in society, and their goal is to tokenize every single thing in society. Our illustrious Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, a billionaire, by the way, cryptocurrency expert, he lusted on national TV over the 682 million acres of land that the U.S. government owns for us and on our behalf, right? It's supposed to be in trust for us. He lusted on national TV, oh, if Elon Musk and I, why, if we can take that $500 trillion asset and make even 0.25% off of it, why, we could pay down the national debt. It's not his to tokenize. But nevertheless, this is exactly what is in their mind, to take everything in society and basically tokenize it. But here's the thing, what it really means, you cannot live in your fraction. I don't care what it is, your car or your house, whatever. You can't live in your fraction. You can't will it to your children. You can't improve it or defend it. Your platform operator can delist you at will, and your ownership evaporates on demand. This is no concept of ownership that we've ever seen in the history of our country. So basically, they turned the world into, well, you're no longer a steward exercising dominion over your property. You're now a consumer consuming a service. Process that for just a minute. You're now a consumer consuming a service rather than a sovereign owner of an asset. Digital identity now, this is the surveillance architecture that ties every individual to the system. You might remember the UN used to talk about, well, we see this in education, for instance. They said, well, no child left behind. This type of thinking was all over literature and the United Nations. Everybody has to be included in the system. No outliers are possible. So when we talk about every person attached to the system based on programmable money, the tokenized assets, and digital identity, it creates a closed system where access to property, commerce, and economic participation becomes conditional on maintaining compliance, your compliance to the system. And if you think you're not going to go, you say, well, I won't comply. That's fine. You'll just be X'd out. Can we think about ahead to Revelation, for instance, 13 and 17, 8? Oh yeah, I get it. You mean you can just shut me off if I don't agree with you at that point? Well, that's exactly what they're doing. So what the original technocrats could only dream about in 1934, their intellectual descendants can now implement with blockchain, biometrics, and artificial intelligence with no possibility of exit. This is the problem. We've always had the possibility of, I don't care what system has been implemented in America, there's always been an option to opt out. Not anymore. This is not in the cards in their mind. So AI now, we know that the AI is very important as a control system for this whole thing. We said in our last book, what can be surveilled can be controlled. That's a truism for sure. But we see now AI as the operating system for this whole thing. The AI action plan that was crafted in July 2025, there was 3 EOs, executive orders mandated to fund AI across all federal agencies. AI is the operating system of the replacement system. Without AI, the technocratic architecture collapses. You might have the idea, well, if I can collapse AI, maybe we could get all the technocracy out of our system. Maybe. But then in December 2025, the State Department came out with this new thing called the Pax Silica. There wasn't big fanfare, but nevertheless, they had an official ceremony and that sort of thing to release this declaration, they called it. The AI empire goes global. So the idea was, well, it's not just going to be for us now, but Trump's decided he wants to wrap nations into the U.S. infrastructure based on AI. And so Pax Silica will deliver the full stack of AI technology under license to any country that will sign this declaration, the Pax Silica Declaration. So once embedded, a nation can't exit without dismantling its own infrastructure at that point. So they're willing to give this system, the AI system, to countries like Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, among others, some European countries as well, England, Australia. They're both over the top with, dystopia. So, this business of growing empire around the world is all of a sudden it's just there. It's just, who would have thunk that just in the space of a few months that it could expand to the rest of the world. Well, then we consider what happened with Doge, which you probably remember Doge, that's the Department of Government Efficiency that Elon Musk was supposed to be in charge of. Remember that guy? Yeah. Well, Doge was not about saving money, and never was. It was about the federal data being shipped into the cloud from its siloed positions in private databases with the keys held by trusted employees in the government. You might remember the fights that took place briefly in the media, where they waltz in, for instance, of the Treasury Department. They said, "We demand you give us the keys to the data." And they said, not just heck no, but well, no, I won't say the word, but that's what they said. You can't have those keys. Guess who won? All those people were fired immediately. And so all of the data in Washington, D.C. has been exported to the cloud, where now it's being managed by, guess who? Palantir, the master spy organization in the world. So along the way, they fired 275,000 human positions that were eliminated. There was a reason for that. But in particular, the idea was to fill those positions with AI, not with humans. So AI has now taken over the federal government on all levels. This is stunning, because the people in government don't have a clue what they're doing. They really don't know. They have no ability to understand what AI is about, much less how to use it. But the technical experts have seen fit to give them all the expertise to run the systems to fill the void of the functions, at least, that were removed. So now we're going to talk about the Genius Act in particular. This was passed into law 2025, July 18th. A Senate vote 68 to 30. This is called the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act. GENIUS, that's the acronym. What it claims to do, and by the way, this was passed legitimately by Congress. What it claims to do, they want to regulate stable coin issuers. They require 100% reserves of treasury bills to back every token that gets created. They want to protect consumers from fraud, they say. They want to preserve the USD, the US dollar global dominance, they say. They want to encourage financial innovation, they say. What it actually does, what it actually did at this point, it legitimizes private programmable money. So in the first month of his administration, you might remember that there was an executive order that Trump signed that told the Federal Reserve, forget your research on central bank digital currencies. A lot of people said, hallelujah, he's going after the Fed. Well, it was about getting the Fed out of the way so that they can create their own independent, privatized monetary system right before our eyes. And so it puts legitimacy to private programmable money. It allows conditions on what you can buy. Blockchain transparency means essentially warrantless surveillance. Tether, that's one of the cryptocurrencies, already owns $127 billion in US treasuries as collateral for stable coins. And the Anti-Central Bank Digital Currencies Act funnels users towards stable coins instead. Well, it just so happens that one of the major stable coin issuers was Trump's World Liberty Financial Organization, run by his sons and the sons of the Whitcoff family. I can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. So the Clarity Act, on the other hand, this is the shoe that wants to drop right now. The Clarity Act was part of the Genius Act in the first place, but it was so odious to the banking system, the regional banks, state banks, whatever, they had to strip the whole thing out, and they did. They created another bill called the Clarity Act. It's working its way out through the Senate right now. It's passed, it passed the House last year, July 17th, but it's waiting for Senate approval at this point. If you want to get on the horn and call your senators, do. But together, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act form the regulatory architecture that legitimize the tokenization of real-world assets, not only payment tokens, but real-world assets, and cements private programmable money as the foundation of the American financial system. This is a huge deal. We had a financial system once upon a time. This is going to replace it altogether. So nobody saw this, I don't think, last year for sure, but it's on the books right now. So now I'm going to switch gears, talk about what happened in the Middle East, because this is so important. This is so important to this whole framework. The Abraham Accords, so-called, that were established and by Jared Kushner in particular in 2020. Well, back up. Kushner was appointed in 2017 as a senior advisor for the Middle East. He was tasked to re-engineer the region around commerce, not ideology. That was the new thing. So he created the Abraham Accords, and it caught on, and all of a sudden, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, they all moved into this new thing to normalize relations based on economic concerns, not ideology. You might remember every president in our history has tried to make peace in Israel. What happened to all of them? They all got their clock cleaned, right? They couldn't do it. They had egg on their face even before they left. So the Abraham Accords took another approach. We're not going to solve this politically. We're going to solve this with economic pressure. So then 2021, 22, the so-called I2U2 framework was created in India, Israel, the US, and the UAE. They formed a public-private grouping for joint infrastructure investment. This was a direct forerunner of a treaty called the IMEC Corridor. We'll talk about it in just a minute. Then in 2023, the IMEC memorandum was signed in India on September 9th, where at the G20 meeting in New Delhi, India, US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, EU, France, Germany, Italy, they all signed on this economic corridor that's going to pass through India, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and on to Europe. And just, well, I'll hold off on my comments here. The bottom line is, the same architect that designed the diplomatic precondition, brokered the commercial relationships, now governs the territory that the corridor passes through. This is going to be, people are likening this as like the modern iteration of the Silk Road trade route in history. So this is a big deal, and this was all made possible because of Jared Kushner in the first place, who was tasked to make this other relationship with these countries based on economic activity. So when we talk about this so-called Board of Peace now, we're back to the World Economic Forum. This is where this was released, was one of their meetings of the World Economic Forum. By the way, Larry Fink is now the co-leader of the World Economic Forum. It just so happens he's a member of the Trilateral Commission as well, so there you figure. So oddly, President Trump decided to create the Board of Peace with himself as chairman of the board, as an individual person, not as president of the United States. This has never happened in the history of the world, at least in our country, where a president went outside of our borders and, you know, took this other relationship. And not only that, he said, I'm going to be chairman for life. And I read the document itself. I couldn't believe this. He has the right to succession. In other words, to appoint his heir before he dies. Maybe that's going to be Kushner, who knows, but no, he hasn't said. But this is so odd. Congress has not said anything. Our legal community hasn't said anything. The press hasn't said anything. I don't know where everybody is on this, but I'm looking at this like, you've got to be kidding. You can't do that. You can't do that sort of stuff. Okay, so he's the chairman for life. And he said, well, permanent seats will cost you $1 billion each. And 47 nations have attended the February 19th meeting. Italy said that we won't go along with this, and it's incompatible with our Constitution. God bless Italy. The financial conflict is just stunning because Steve Witkoff is simultaneously Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, who happens to also be the co-owner of World Liberty Financial, the issuer of USD1. Okay, so in any case, President Trump, as president, pledged $10 billion to the Board of Peace. No money has been distributed at this point. He has no basis to do it. And there's been no legal status either. There's no enabling treaty, no act of Congress, no formal international agreement like even the UN. Statutory time limit's going to run out on him, I think, after 1 year, and who knows what'll happen after that. So the Board of Peace is instrumental at this point. You'll see why. Gaza. You've all heard about Gaza. And the world has gone crazy for Gaza. You know, either they hate him or they whatever, or they love him. But this is a story of Gaza that will just make your head spin. Gaza, the first project of the Board of Peace was Gaza. They said that openly, and they talked about it incessantly at the World Economic Forum meeting. They trotted out all the documents and the movies and whatever, how great it's going to be and how it's going to be, it's going to be fair to the people. And they talked about the 2.3 million people that still live there. Well, the Board of Peace is to provide the governance layer to Gaza, with Trump as the chairman. Chaired for life by one individual, no Palestinian representation, no democratic accountability to the governed population whatsoever. The financial layer is being proposed as USD1, that's Trump's stablecoin company, where all digital transactions will be trackable with rules set by the board and its technical committee. Property will be tokenized by the World Liberty Financial tokenization arm that was just created 3 months ago, out of the blue. They said, well, we're going to do asset tokenization now. Okay, fine. So now they're talking about the property will be tokenized all throughout Gaza, where tokenized real estate loan and revenue will be tokenized, the same platform that BlackRock uses. They talked about a $70 billion reconstruction investment raised on chain. They say that's the accumulation of money through blockchain. And the security layer for Gaza will be provided by CENTCOM. That's one of our military establishments. ruling powers. CENTCOM is going to oversee, and it's already there in Israel at this point with an office. They're overseeing a 20,000 troop international security force, all Muslim force, 5,000 from each country here: Albania, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, and Morocco. How does this fly? Well, U.S. general would be managing all these troops. Somehow, this will be the enforcement arm of the board, not to protect the people of the country, but to protect the investments that they're going to put in there. So I'm going to show you a clip of Jared Kushner at the World Economic Forum talking about the management of Gaza. Listen carefully.
And I we're speaking to him and the entire committee. Such bravery of these people to step up, and we've worked with the Palestinian Authority, who's been helping us as well. But this committee is the first time. It's a technocratic, apolitical committee. I really want to thank the Arab partners for helping us select the right people to do this, and we just need to believe in them and support.
Did you catch it? A technocratic, apolitical committee. This is the blueprint of governance worldwide at this point, to be ruled by an apolitical, technocratic committee, and this is going to take place in Gaza. This will be the first example that we'll see this in the world. I talked about Pax Silica before, building empire. We see the strategic alignment with American AI technology stack. People are like at the State Department, they're saying, well, this is kind of like the G7 was to the industrial age. Pax Silica is going to be to the AI age. Well, you have the so-called the frontier AI models will be distributed. The compute data centers, the semiconductors, energy inputs, everything in the technology stack is going to be delivered to these allies of the Mideast, or even in the Mideast. And so this is empire by dependency. It's not empire by conquering, but it's empire by dependency. It promotes the export of American AI technology stack. It takes the domestic technocratic architecture international. Nations that align with American standards can gain access to the latest models. They'll run governance on Palantir, settle in USD1, tokenize on securitize, train on NVIDIA's chips, and you can't exit the system without dismantling your own infrastructure. Very clever move. So now, why did I talk about Gaza, building empire, whatever? This comes down to this. Islamic finance is a big thing because Islamic finance does not allow debt at all. It's forbidden by the religion. The Quran says you can't charge interest, usury. So all of a sudden, you just think back, how much money has Trump brought into the United States from sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East? Over $2 trillion at this point to build our AI infrastructure out in our country. $2 trillion, that's a lot of money. So what's going on here? Where is this cozy stuff coming from, except that somebody in the architecture stack figured out, oh, we can induct 1.8 billion Muslims into our system, who are mostly unbanked, to get them into this system that it will be based on asset tokenization, not debt-based system. So they found common ground to start the merging process with Islamic finance. If you think you think you don't like what's going on in Texas right now, with all Islamic cities and taking over, they want to establish Sharia law. You think that's bad. Just wait until Sharia finance takes over. And well, that's part of their religion. Financial jihad is a big thing in Islam. So everywhere they have money, they're supposed to use it for the cause of jihad. This will be no exception, for sure. So we see the similarities here. I won't go through all of them. You take a picture of the slide if you want. The merger with Technocracy, however, is Muslims lead in this field of fintech. They've been after fintech, that's financial technologies, for at least 10, 12 years at this point. They wanted to be the leader of this whole market segment. They're on top of it right now. It's an asset-based economic system, same architecture, interchangeable on all levels, and most importantly, they have 1.8 billion Muslims signed up to go. So now we have the India-Middle East economic corridor. To talk about this for just a second. Lo and behold, this was a concept that grew out of the Abraham Accords. But India, this is formerly one of the BRICS nations. India has been chomping at the bit to be the lead on this new trade corridor that will go through the UAE, through Saudi Arabia. You can see Haifa at the top of that map there, and then on to Greece. Well, what's going on here? India is supposed to be aligned with China, but not anymore. Well, I'm not going to go into that, but there's obviously something screwy in the picture here, because India is breaking ranks with India to be the lead on this new trade corridor. And not just going to be like ships, railroads, that sort of thing. They have pipelines for natural gas, for oil into Europe. Hydrogen is another thing. Helium is another gas that they need as well. The financial, the rails of AI infrastructure are already going to be in place with fiber optic bundles. They're being laid under the sea, under the earth, where all the AI data centers in the Middle East and India as well can be connected to the rest of the world. This is stunning if you consider the possibilities that this raises for global trade, because this is all based in the Middle East. Why should Christians care what happens in the Middle East? Okay, you got it. We should pay attention, because the Strait of Hormuz was the first choke point to the concept of IMEC. And yeah, I'll just put it this way: maybe it was never about nuclear stockpiles in Iran, rather than settling who's going to control the Strait of Hormuz. Because all the traffic that will be generated from India has to go through the Strait of Hormuz, touch into the UAE, Oman, etc., to be offloaded onto rail into Saudi Arabia, and then onwards to Haifa. Haifa is a deep water port in the north part of Israel, okay? So, and it just so happens that Haifa is 93 kilometers north of Gaza. Connect a dot here. Why is Trump so incessant on getting control of Gaza? He said this is going to be basically the Riviera of the Mediterranean. You know, they had plans revealed, stunning plans for 6 smart cities, and all 15 mini cities for sure. But okay, so cozy, all of a sudden, the global trade routes are going to pass just outside of Gaza. It might make some people in Gaza filthy, stinking rich, you might imagine. But here's another, interestingly, another route that's possible, not IMEC at this point, but because President Trump has, the negotiators of this treaty with Iran, it wasn't Trump himself, but Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. They saw fit to get rid of the sanctions against Iran. And so all of a sudden, the plans that Iran has tabled for at least 20 years at this point, to create a rail line and a corridor into Russia and then on to Europe. This is the possibility on the table. All of a sudden, because of this treaty, this is the possibility. Our alternative to okay, here's another possibility. This is a really weird one, because Saudi Arabia, this is the Saudi at the bottom of this picture here, Saudi Arabia doesn't want the terminus of IMEC to end in Israel and Haifa. They said, well, if you can't guarantee the Palestinians can have their own state, well, we won't participate with Israel at all. Okay, so at the same time, Turkey says, if you don't include us in this thing, we're out of it. We'll blow you all to smithereens. So all of a sudden, there's another alternative route that comes from, of all places, the holy city of Medina in Saudi Arabia, meandering through, you can see the points of going into Istanbul, Turkey, and then on to Europe. And interestingly enough, you see the one connector to Haifa and Beirut as well. And so there's possibilities here for an alternative. This would be the third alternative. And then we have this most interesting trade route. This should excite you, I think, because when you go through the Strait of Hormuz and you go up to Iraq, that's the home of this new deepwater port called Al-Fa. Al-Fa is going to connect to a railroad that will carry traffic through Iraq into Turkey and then beyond. Well, it just so happens, just put the dots to this one. Where is Babylon in this picture? It just so happens that Babylon is 55 miles just due south of Baghdad. That means this trade corridor will be basically a stone's throw, maybe 200 kilometers, but that's a stone throw. This is kind of an exciting possibility for biblical prophecy stuff. Where would how could Babylon be rebuilt based on global trade? Well, there you go. So we have the Technocrat network. There's a remarkably small number of individuals that control every node. This is one point of it. The World Liberty Financial Organization, just the Trump kids, that's Donald Jr., Eric, the Witkoff sons as well, they're friends, they're involved with this. Tanun, the guy that heads the UAE's national security apparatus. He's in charge of billions or trillions of dollars of sovereign wealth funds. This is the guy that took a secret investment in Trump's World Liberty Financial before the election, no, just after the election, but before the inauguration. Secretly, he invested $500 million to get a 49% share of World Liberty Financial. So Trump all of a sudden has almost a partnership, if you will, with this guy, Al Nahyan, the UAE National Security Advisor. He chairs all kinds of stuff. He's all over the Middle East. So we have, then of course, we have Palantir, that's a private company, PayPal Mafia people that provides the surveillance infrastructure. There's a small number of people that are controlling every node. So it's not like there's some democratic organization like the United Nations even that are controlling anything. Then just so happens in 2023, 6 or 5 months before the treaty was signed, or the memorandum that was signed to start IMEC corridor rolling, just before that, in the same place in New Delhi, the Trilateral Commission had its plenary meeting. That means they all came from all around the world to New Delhi, and they had their major conflab. A commissioner stood up and said, and I quote, 50 years after the founding of the Trilateral Commission, 50 years, he stood up and said, this is year one of the new international economic order. Nobody even blinked an eye. I did. I knew exactly what he's talking about. This was all over their literature in 1973 about creating a new international economic order. This was an organization founded by David Rockefeller, Zbigniew Brzezinski. The stated goal, new international economic order. Real goal, replace price-based capitalism with technocracy. We know that, looking backwards now. And 2023, the architecture was seeded for 50 years and now has arrived at operational scale. 2023. We have to talk about the Bible a little bit because this is important to my story, at least, the theological fault line. Human beings made in the image of God were given dominion over the earth. Don't get weird on me. I'm not preaching dominionism or anything like that. But we were given dominion over the earth, including stewardship of property, land, fruits of labor, etc. The commandment, thou shalt not steal, supposes legitimacy and sanctity of private ownership. This we all know that, right? So the biblical framework, property is not merely economic, it's an expression of dignity of persons. The Mosaic law, a year of Jubilee, for instance, returned property to families. Didn't centralize it. He returned it to the property to the families. The owner exercises dominion given by God. This is how we operate. The technocratic program is set against this on every possible measure. Tokenization does not steal property, but it dissolves the concept entirely. When all you have exists as permission token, the relationship with persons and creation is severed. The shift from owner to user is not economic, but it's basically anti-human. This is not a political agenda. This is probably one reason that it's been seen as non-event all these years. But people want to argue over politics, not economics. But this has been an economic takeover, if you will, not political. So from owner to user, a steward exercising God-given dominion can will property to children, can improve, defend, or sell. No platform can revoke access. These are the unalienable rights we're guaranteed in the Constitution. Well, actually, they're given by God, not the Constitution. You get my point. Is independent of any system's permission, but as a user now, a user is a consumer of a service on someone else's platform. The token evaporates when the operator decides you can't live in it, you can't defend it or improve your fraction. The access is conditional on the basis of compliance, and most importantly, there's no exit from the system. You will still have a roof, you will still eat, but every function will be mediated through a platform you did not control, on terms you did not set, accessible so long as you remain in compliance. This is the heartbeat of the statement, you will own nothing. You won't be happy, for sure. What can be done? Well, just some thoughts. Educate, yeah. You have people, if people can't understand what's going on, they have no possibility of defending anything. That's probably the most important thing. This includes legislators, city council people, county commissioners, et cetera. You have to expose the network and name it by what it is. People are saying, well, it's communism, right? No, it's not communism at all. The technocrats hated communists in the 30s and 40s. They were at war with each other incessantly. It's not communism. It's not socialism. It's technocracy. It's the most evil thing that I've ever seen in the history of the world. You can oppose the Clarity Act at this point. It hasn't been passed yet. It may not be passed this year if enough people goose it, so to speak. It might not pass, and who knows what the next Congress will do with it. If the Congress flips in November, it could be another game for sure. You should defend sovereign property at every instance. Resist tokenization schemes that redefine ownership as access. Private property is not a preference, it's a foundation of human dignity. So defend sovereign property anytime you can. Talk to your county registrar, for instance, or the clerk down at the recorder's office. Share this book. I'll show you the book, and we have several in the back here. Share this book and get people into it. There's an audio book as well. People will often listen to the audio book before they read a good book. But there's a Kindle version on Amazon as well. And, you know, all I can say at this point, I've kind of laid out the whole scheme to you here. We've been assaulted on every conceivable way that we can be assaulted at this point. Human dignity, God's creation, and by the way, if you want to have your own exercise to do, you can do it on your own. Take what you know now about technocrats, and then make a list of the things that you know about creation, and see if you see a correlation between what the technocrats are doing in society versus what God said about creation. And you'll find that in every instance, there's a direct assault on creation by the technocrat class. everything that you can mention, you'll see that it's a direct assault on God's creation. God doesn't take lightly to people who mess with creation. You see this in the book of the letter to Laodicea, for instance, where he says he's the firstborn of creation. Well, that should be a warner. Don't mess with creation. Don't mess with what God has done. We see how creation will be used to judge the world, where it's turned on them. They'll cry out for the rocks to fall on them. But we can see today that the assault has already started with technocracy. And it's going to get worse, I fear. This year and next year is going to be stunning what happens. I'm expecting this book was written 5 months after the last book. The next book probably will be 4 months after the last one, and I'm running out of space already. So pray for me, pray for yourselves. Keep your wits about yourself. And tell anybody that will listen, even if it's just a small thing. We like to pay tips at least with cash. Engage your server and tell them or explain to them why you're giving them a cash tip. They'll all smile. They all understand that cash is under attack. Most of them don't get their tips for 2 weeks after all the credit cards is cleared, so they don't know how much they really have. When you give them a tip, you have a great opportunity to educate them. That's just an idea. There's other things you can do as well. So, what do you think, Pastor?
You got time to answer a few questions?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Yes, you get to handle that. And I'll sit down over here. You can stay seated.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and give us an opportunity to ask a few questions. I've got one here online that somebody asked on YouTube. They said, when do you think they'll flip the switch globally? But I think I know the idea. How soon do you think before this goes global?
It's not going to be a switch like that, but it's a rolling process at this point. We've seen the beachhead for technocracy, for instance, established in Gaza. We see the same thing rolling over now in Iran, where a super big reconstruction fund has been proposed to rebuild Iran, and $300 billion, all raised from private investors, not from sovereign, not from governments, for instance. Gotcha. So they've already, they say, Reuters has reported that half of that $300 billion has already been raised. We'll see if it has or not, but they're saying that it's been. So this, when Kushner went to negotiate, he didn't negotiate to contain Iran. That's what we wanted. We wanted Iran to be contained. We wanted to not necessarily beat them into pulp, but we cared about the students that were slaughtered along the way. We cared about the people in the country like us getting a fair shake. But all of this has been thrown out the window at this point, so there's been no containment whatsoever on Iran. But the goal of Jared Kushner was not containment in the first place. It was about economic integration.
So I guess the good way to think of that, just thinking about the question, but from what I'm hearing, from what I've been reading in the book and what you're saying, basically Trump has developed this economic system that will envelop pretty much all of the Muslim world, right?
That's right.
And so once the Muslim world gets on it, I think the rest of the world will follow, right?
That seems to be the idea
Yeah.
at this point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a question out here?
I have a comment and then a question. The comment would be like the technocracy, the computers that we've been dealing with over the years with these user agreements almost seems like they've been conditioning us for this owner versus user. So when you want to use your property, as long as you agree to it, then you can. But my question though is with China, this meeting that Trump had with China, do you see as a technocracy type influence that caused him to have an about face on things when he came back?
That's a great question. Thank you for answering that, asking that. China has been identified as a technocracy for at least 25 years at this point. Flat out technocracy. It's run by scientists and engineers, basically. The trappings are still there for the Communist Party, but that's not what's going to control China. When Trump recently went to China, you might remember that he had an entourage. Basically, all the arch technocrats from Washington, D.C. went with him, not on their own separate planes, but not on Air Force One. Nevertheless, he had 17 tech oligarchs, all billionaires, that went with him to China to what people said, well, Trump's going to sell us out to China. That was not hardly. He went with these tech bros from Silicon Valley, basically. And what happened at that point, of the 17 that went along, 40% of them were members of a board, an advisory board on the largest technical, like an MIT counterpart in China. It's called Tsinghua University. 1911, founded. It's a big thing in China. In 2000, the head technocrat that ran the university wanted to establish an advisory board to advise the School of Management how to run their technocracy. So they assembled a board. The chairman of the first board was none other than Henry Paulson, then our Secretary of Treasury. They called him Hammerin' Hank Paulson. That's the guy that pounded his fist during the 2008 meltdown and demanded that Congress give him a blank check or you're all going to be down the drain tomorrow. He did it just like that. This was the first chairman of the board of Tsinghua University's advisory board. Now we see all these people going to China. 40% of those people were also on that board to this day. 40% of these are people advising China how to structure the management structure of the management and the economic structure of the country. Unbelievable to me that they can get away with this and think that nobody would notice, but just figure this, the chairman of the board right now, Tim Cook of Apple. Go figure. You can't make this stuff up. What happened with China, it was not dressing down China. It wasn't begging China for anything. But basically, they were saying, China, if you play with us now, we'll invite you into the world stage for the sake of the global technocracy. That's my opinion.
Wow. Hey, Alan was asking, how long before they tokenize the stock market? How long do you think it'll take?
It's slated for 2026.
So by the end of this year.
That's what they say. Yeah, it's a very swift process for sure.
Okay.
It's just computers.
Yeah. So it just turns basically what you would call shares into line items on a code, right?
It's really confusing to understand how the share system will settle like it is right now.
Yeah.
But the token system, it'll settle in a different way, but somehow they're going to equate it. I don't know exactly how
Yeah.
it's going to work, but it'll be confusing for sure.
I'm sure. Okay, any other questions? We have a microphone, so.
I have a question. Patrick, you said we could oppose the Clarity Act. What would we do? Contact our congressman, and what kind of
Senators.
verbiage?
Senators.
Senators. he said.
Senator,
Yeah.
do you have any advice on what we could say instead of just we oppose the Clarity Act?
I could help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's got a question? Tamia.
So with cryptocurrency, is that going to be absorbed in, or will that just, because it's the blockchain instead of stablecoin, am I correct? What's going to happen to cryptocurrency? Will it be absorbed in because it's hitting the floor right now?
It is, and it'll be folded in incrementally for sure. I think it's going to be rapid. The trajectory already has gone, like a few million to a few billion. Now they're talking hundreds of billions, just in a period like of 12 months. So it's catching fire all over the place. And with people like Larry Fink pushing the whole thing, well, you figure that's exactly what's going to happen in the future. Larry Fink has said flat out, anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized in the future.
I have a question. What do you do
We'll get these up next. Go ahead, Michelle, I'm sorry.
what's going to happen with gold and silver, the way everybody...
Good question, good question. People are buying gold and silver if they can. Some people can't, but if you can buy gold and silver, that's a wonderful thing. But here's the problem. With the concept of ownership at this point, eventually you'll run out of gold and silver. If you have to spend it to buy something that you need down the line, there's no way to replace the gold and silver that you have, that you spent. So it's obviously a protection, a near-term protection for you. But like dehydrated food, well, what happens if you have to eat your food? You're glad to have it as long as you do, but eventually you will run out of food, and then you're just like everybody else, right? So.
And we've had it happen in the past in history. The government could just confiscate it, tell you have to turn it in for credits. It's illegal to own it. They've done it before in the past in the United States. They could do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I have a question in regards to real property. So when Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing and be happy, and take away property rights, so those folks that own their properties or own their vehicles or own this stuff, now all of a sudden you don't own it, who owns it, and how is that all going to, in your opinion, how is that going to play out?
This will be a rolling process for sure, because some people won't give up their property easily. A lot of people who, for instance, I think 32% of the country already own their homes outright. They have to pay property taxes and stuff like that, but nevertheless, they'll be probably insulated by the tokenization takeover. But eventually they have to sell. Everybody sells eventually. You get old, you die. Your kids don't want to keep the property, they sell it. This stuff happens. You get called for a job out of state. You have to move. You don't want to leave your house in the hands of renters or whatever. You sell. So property will be rolled over, but when it rolls over, it's going to roll into stronger hands that will tokenize it. Yeah. We've already seen this after the financial meltdown, where all these houses appeared on the market, and you saw the signs all over town, "We'll buy your house for cash," right? They meant it. So a lot of people did that. Say, well, I'll take cash now, and I'll give it to somebody like BlackRock, and that's exactly what they did. They have portfolios now of thousands of homes around America. They even bought up blocks of new subdivisions as well to turn them into rentals. For a little bit. They're still buying, but the damage has already been done. All I'm saying is the incentive was there for people to sell, and all those homes they got gobbled up by the strong hands, like the investment funds like BlackRock. So as more property was taken out of the market, you might suspect what effect did that have on the rest of the market? Well, nobody can find a starter home anymore because they're all gone, and they've been sucked up by this machine to be turned into tokenized portfolios that have an income stream sent to the token owners. Does that make sense? And this will continue. This will be, we'll see fragments of society caving to this tokenization machine.
Now, I had a theory that I shared with Patrick at one point that, just kind of thinking through all these things, exactly what the question you asked, and I thought about it, and I kept coming back to this scenario where the government would say, hey, we figured out a way to fix the national debt, but everybody's going to have to give up their personal property. It's going to become, and they'll spin it like this. Oh, you'll own the home that you have on the property, but if we tokenize all of the land, we can pay off the national debt. And and so basically what you will do is, instead of paying property tax, you'll pay the fee to the token owner, which would be whatever percentage per year, and they'll spin it like this: you'll pay less than your property tax. And we could solve the national debt. And I think a lot of people would go for it thinking, oh, I already have to pay property tax, and if I don't pay it, they take my property. So what's the difference between me paying rent for the property, which is against the Constitution of the United States, because the United States clearly has in the Constitution property ownership. But, if the government was to seize some way the property like that, I just thought it would full circle around to where then they have control of everything, because that's the last bastion of freedom and liberty that we have, is our personal property that we've paid off and we own. They're already getting us on property tax. I mean, property tax is ridiculous. We shouldn't even have to pay for it, but we do. And we get feed and taxed all over the place. So if they come up to somebody and say, well, we know how you can save some money, most people don't even think through the larger problem of it. They just figure, well, if the government's going to help me save money, it must be good. And it's not. So that's just a thought that I had.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to have, they'll scheme ways to cheat us out of our birthright,
Yeah.
if you will. If they
Exactly.
can. So,
I want to touch back to the gold and silver item, because a lot of people were being told to, minimize the stock exchange and then invest in gold and silver. That's something tangible, hard assets. So my question is going back to, if they're going to tokenize and fractionalize like everything, and for instance, the New York Stock Exchange, do you see any chance of them then turning their eyes toward any of the investments like gold and silver, iridium, and all that other stuff, and they're saying we're going to cap it out?
This is already happening right now.
It's already happening, or it's happened?
Well, gold is being tokenized in the strong hands. Like institutional investors, like BlackRock, they have a hoard of gold. They can tokenize it any way they want and spread it around. That's an asset. It's just there's asset. There's an asset that can be tokenized. It will be tokenized.
Yeah, the difference is if I bought it and I have it sitting in my house. If I buy gold and I have some gold coins sitting, those are mine. That's my property. But if you've invested in a company that's a gold company, and you have like your because you can go invest in gold in your 401k, those are already tokenized, because that's an asset being held in a building somewhere that you have an investment in. And at one point, you can't just go there and say, I want my gold. You can get your money back, your tokens back, if you want to sell it, but you're not going to get your hands on
Yeah,
it because
you'll never
it's
see the
already
gold.
been tokenized.
You'll never see the gold. That's
Yeah,
the bottom
it's
line.
like what happened to Fort Knox. I thought we were going to get a tour of Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Whatever happened there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you understood that or not, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you have the physical gold in your hand, then you own it until you sell it. Then once you sell it, whoever buys it will tokenize it. Because it'll go back into the system. But, that, I don't know how many people, but there are a lot of companies. I'm just kind of referring to like when you see the commercials on TV where you can invest in gold in those companies where you have, you have the value of the gold that you put your money into on a line item, but that's basically a digital token in its sense that you're investing in that. And that's really, the world that we invest in has been digitalized anyway, for the most part. The only things that we'll still have possession with are the things that we have in our hands, which will mean that a lot of us will have to just get creative on the way that we live, So, Bob?
Yeah.
I want to change gears slightly. In the very beginning, you talked about the Trilateral Commission. And about 40 years ago, I remember learning a little bit about some things, but the fact is, I'm not sure how many of the things I've heard about them 40 years ago were true. So, as far as you know, speaking of corridors in the Middle East, is that still on the plan for a corridor in the U.S. going from north to south to divide it down the middle? Do you know anything about that?
What was it called? It was called what was it? It had some kind of road initiative that was going to connect Canada and Mexico through a road together.
Is that still something that you think is possible?
It is possible, and you might remember when Trump first got in office, he said, I'm going after Panama. They kicked China out of Panama. Then he said, well, we might take over Mexico as well. Changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. And then he said, we're going to take Canada and make it the first 51st state. And then he said, we're going to take Greenland and get that in our possession as well. And if you match all those together, you'll see the map of the North American Technate that was established in 1934, by the way, on the cover of the Technocrat study course. That was the exact map that was in red, Greenland to Panama and Argentina, the first part of South America.
And I know Billy's been showing that map a lot on his, he did a thing on Trump and the 10 Kings,
Yes.
and he talks about how Trump is, filling in all the blanks of that map, And we also do know, though, there's been a lot of different things that have been, there's always been a push to unite Canada, Mexico, and America, the United States. This has been an ongoing thing. Now, the road that was pushed back in like 2007, 2008, the Amero, that was an investment by China. And since we've gotten away from China, but Trump has done several, Biden did and then Trump did in this term, and they just recently had a big convention or conference between Mexico, United States, and Canada talking about how we're going to share in technology and all of this stuff. So it will happen one way or another. So it's just the vision that those people have set in motion, even though we haven't seen it materialize, like he said, they said year one at the 50-year date, they're still pushing it. It's still going through, so.
Yeah.
Next question. Jeff, did you have a question? No, Jeff doesn't have a question. Anybody else? Vicky?
Yeah, get the mic.
You do, but not for the people online.
I just had a question. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the research and the information that you're giving to us. I really do appreciate it. My concern is for the believers. And because we're in this kind of a situation, what do we have to being able to trust God? The first thing that comes in my mind is Matthew 6, verses 25, starting at 25. Don't worry. And the thing is, when I pray about that all the time, when God says, don't worry about what you're going to eat and what you're going to, wear and all this, the first thing that really sticks out in my mind is don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about anything, because God's going to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that comes in my mind is how God took care of the Israelites out there in the desert for 40 years.
Yep.
And he took care of them, fed them, their clothes never wore out, their shoes never wore out. They had clouds by day, they had, clouds by day and a moon by night. I feel that we need to focus more on God's word for us, that's going to keep us and protect us through all this turmoil. Am I out of order by saying that? Because I feel in my heart I'm
No,
not.
not at all. You're absolutely right. This is our role as Christians. It's going to happen whether you want it to happen or not. First off, God promised to keep you from any storm or the effects of any storm that life can throw at you. This is just one more storm in that sense. And I at the risk of getting on my soapbox a little bit, I want to remind Christians their role to be ambassadors for Christ. This is exactly how the Apostle Paul said it. I'm an ambassador for Christ in chains. And what that means, when you're an ambassador, you're sent to a foreign land. And just think about the ambassadors right now, China and whatever, France or whatever. When they're sent to a foreign land, their role is to tell people about our country, right? They set up an embassy, and they spread the propaganda, if you will, on how great America is. I can't imagine that's how this works today, but you get the idea. You're there to spread the gospel of America. Mm-hmm. And also, one role you have, when a citizen of your country gets in trouble in that foreign country, they run to you for shelter, right? You go to the embassy, and you can hole up there if you're accused of crime or whatever. You can hole up, and it's a place of safety for you. You can kind of roll this idea off of being an ambassador for Christ. We're supposed to be able to tell people what's going on in the world in the first place, to compare the difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the world. It all sucks at this point. But you should be in a position to explain this to people succinctly. And when you run across somebody who's really in trouble, for whatever reason in the world, they get caught crosswise with something, or whatever, your home or your presence should be a shelter, a cause of shelter for them to come in from the cold, if you will, to seek protection under your roof. That's my mini sermon on being ambassador for Christ. I think we should all be ambassadors, honestly.
And part of this is the reason why we learn these things is because the Bible talks a lot about us having wisdom in the world that we live in. We're to be as wise as a serpent, but harmless as doves. Yeah. So that means that we need to know what's going on around us so that we can interact with our fellow man and show them the faith that we have. When the world starts falling apart, we're the ones that are not, it doesn't bother us. But if we don't know what's going on in the world around us, then we can't communicate with them. We can't show them how it lines up with Bible prophecy, how we are going to persevere through it. That's the open doors of witness that we have, That's why we here at this church, we balance all of this. We bring Patrick in on a Wednesday to school us, and then next week we're back in the Bible, learning how to apply these things to our life. And so that's what we try to do here. I mean, a lot of churches aren't listening to this kind of stuff. And really, their reasoning is they don't want to scare or make people fearful, but that's not the purpose of this. This is the purpose, just know the truth of where the world's going, so that when we see it, we know where it's coming from. And we never have fear. A Christian should never live in fear. God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but he has given us a sound mind. And so we need to think clearly and be able to articulate, exactly what's going on in a way. We know more here at this church, just from what he told us, than 99% of the people out there. And we have the ability to go and to help them see through all of this. Why is Trump doing this? Why is this? Well, I know. And it gives us, but you don't have to worry, because God's in control, and that's the message that we have. So
Amen.
You're welcome. That's right. That's Ed Heinzen used to say that all the time. Anybody else with a question? That's it? Okay.
Let me just say one last thing. Remember, the wealth is building up in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
That keep your focus on the Middle East, what's going on there, that there's untold wealth being accumulated all around the Middle East, not just in Israel, but think of Babylon, think of other cities and major cities. I think we'll see the continuation of this buildup all around the Middle East, and this is where Bible prophecy takes place, not in America.
And I know he has, because we've talked about it. Not all prophecy teachers. Some of my good friends would disagree with me, but I am of the camp that I believe that Babylon in the Bible is literal Babylon. I did a study on it and showed that the pattern is that everybody's wanting to. Well, it has to be a big city. It has to. No, it doesn't. The Bible says that Babylon was beginning to be built. God came down and scattered the language before they finished it. Babylon, where the actual Tower of Babel, has never been built. It's been tried to been remodeled by many different kings, never built, bad water table and everything. But where else would Satan decide to put his world capital of this new united world but Babylon, despite God? Despite the world. And I believe he'll start building Babylon, but it'll be destroyed when Jesus comes at the second coming. And we're seeing all of that funneling, everything going back to the Middle East. Like I said, the number one thing that tells us that we're getting close to the last days is Israel is in the news 24/7, ever since October 7th. It has not stopped. That tells us to look up, because our redemption is drawing very near. So let's go ahead and close in prayer. If you guys want to grab one of his books or talk to him before you leave, please do. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And so let's go ahead and pray. Father, we come before you, Lord, and we do thank you, Lord, for our brother Patrick Wood, Lord. And I know he says a lot of things that sometimes can get us thinking the wrong thoughts, Lord. We have to remember that our trust is not in silver and gold. It's not in our personal property. It's not in those things that we can hold and handle and say that are our own, but our hope is in you, Jesus. And Lord, that's what I know for me personally, when I see where things are going in the world, it helps me handle the world a lot looser than what I have been. And it, Lord, helps me keep my eyes up on you, who is my only hope. And so I pray that would be what we would walk out of here, a little bit lesser gripping the things of the world and more seeking after and desiring the things of you, Lord. And so, God, we just pray for Patrick and Shar as they travel back tomorrow. God, please give them traveling mercies. Thank you for their time here, and continue to inspire Patrick to school us and to instruct us in these things that we really do need to know as we're living in the last days, so that we can be ready to give an answer for the hope that lies within us to anyone who asks. So thank you for our time today, and we lift these things up to you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.